Welcome to the noon meeting of the Rotary Club of Baton Rouge. I'm your club president, Mike Manning. It's a pleasure to be with you again. Excited that we can continue to connect using technology for once as we try to move forward and hopefully get back to where we can start meeting together again. Really excited about our speaker for today. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Phil Brantley, who will do the invocation, to be followed by Lisa Stansberry, who will do the pledge and the four-way test.
Phil didn't make it to our meeting, so Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless this Rotary and our presentation from our speaker today. You bless all those. We ask that you bless all those who are battling against this wretched disease, and help us to find our way forward out of this quarantine situation that we're in. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now will you join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do? 1, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Okay, next Wednesday, we'll meet again, doing another virtual meeting. Our guest speaker will be G. Park, who will be speaking about the Innocence Project. Now, I ask Janet Olson to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you. I'm privileged today to introduce Dr. Schauer. I met Phil and his wife, Patsy, when they were considering his move from Cleveland. They're a lovely couple, and if you hear more about him, you will agree Baton Rouge and Louisiana are incredibly fortunate to have Dr. Schauer join the Pennington Biomedical Research Center. Dr. Schauer is professor of metabolic surgery and director of the Bariatric and Metabolic Institute at Pennington Biomedical Research Institute of Louisiana State University here in Baton Rouge. And he has been working quite hard, even though he came at an interesting time with COVID and all that's gone on. But he recently added to his bariatric team another internationally recognized bariatric surgeon and scientist, Dr. Vance Abu. He's formerly the professor of surgery at the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine. He is the past president of the American Society for Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery, former chair and founder of Obesity Week, and has been the co-chair of the Diabetes Surgery Summit. Dr. Schauer's clinical interests include obesity, diabetes, and metabolic surgery. He's performed more than 8,000 operations for severe obesity and diabetes. His research interests include the pathophysiology of obesity and type 2 diabetes and outcomes of metabolic surgery. He's authored more than 350 scientific papers, 60 textbook chapters, 3 textbooks related to obesity, bariatric, metabolic surgery, and gastrointestinal surgery, with more than 20,000 citations. He has awards that are too numerous to name. I would just say that we are really fortunate to have him here. I think that he can make changes not only for Louisiana, but we can be proud that we'll be changing things, I think, throughout the world related to obesity and diabetes. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Schauer.
Thank you, Janet. That was a very kind introduction, and I'm very pleased to be here. I cannot see the audience, so I'm assuming that my slides are up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I assume that they are. Well, again, I want to thank the Baton Rouge Rotary and its members for attending my little talk today. I know this is a very challenging time, this COVID era. Hopefully we're beyond the worst of it, but we all realize that this has challenged all of us in many ways, both in the healthcare community, the business community, and throughout. But I appreciate your willingness to be here today. And I'm very excited about the potential here at Pennington. So my talk today is really a new era of world-class obesity and diabetes treatment at Pennington. This is very, very exciting because I'm sure many of you are aware for the past 30 years, Pennington has been a world-class research institute focusing on nutrition, obesity, and diabetes. But we're about to embark on, and this is Dr. John Kerwin, the new executive director of Pennington, or he has been for the last few years. His new vision is to expand beyond research and actually provide a treatment for these diseases. And we think Pennington is so well suited to carry out that role. So you might ask, and Janet had pointed out, I, for the last 15 years, was in Cleveland at the Cleveland Clinic. So why did I come here? Well, I tell you why I came here. I want to be on the championship team. And everyone recognizes Baton Rouge and LSU as the national champions. And it does seem like a long time ago that LSU became the national champions, right? But we can't forget, and I think in the midst of all this misery with COVID, we sort of forgot about that, forgot to celebrate this. But this is a national champion. I hope to be part of a national champion medical science team as well that we built. So why did I come here? Well, Pennington has already established itself as a biomedical national champion, just like our LSU football team. Ever since the Pennington was actually dedicated back in 1983 by Doc Pennington, it has established itself as a national and international research center second to none, with a gathering of over 200 scientists who have been extremely productive in major contributions to scientific knowledge in the realm of obesity and diabetes. These are the areas I'm very interested in. And it has a fantastic facility here on Perkins Road. So this is what brought me here. But even more than the building, to me, it's really the distinguished faculty, the renowned faculty here that have major contribution in this area. So I'm very pleased to immerse myself among the other faculty to exchange ideas and collaborate and create and help add to this great team that's already here. So we actually solidified this relationship, as Janet had mentioned. My wife Patsy and I came down in late October, and we were very warmly greeted by the leadership here in Baton Rouge, all of whom, and I think all of you are probably very familiar with these faces because they are the movers and shakers of Baton Rouge and Louisiana, all of whom have in specific ways supported this new initiative. And it's a really tremendous collaboration between Pennington, the Louisiana Economic Development, the Pennington Foundation, LSU Health New Orleans, the Office of the Governor, and you can see the Governor John Bel Edwards front and center next to Paula Pennington, and also Our Lady of the Lake, which is our healthcare delivery partner, virtually right across the street. So the intent here is to combine the research prowess of Pennington with the clinical strength of Our Lady of the Lake, which is one of the most prominent hospitals in Louisiana and actually in the South. So we think this is a really winning ticket going forward. So what is this about? Well, I think all of you are quite familiar with this problem of obesity, and it really has become the nation's public enemy number one, because it's obesity that is driving many of the other conditions and diseases that are killing Americans. Obesity is a major driver of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and many of the other killers. And if we can focus on treating and preventing obesity, we'll make major strides in reducing the morbidity and mortality of all of these diseases. And I think this recent COVID era really draws a lot of attention to obesity. And this graphic points out that obesity certainly is a driver of many conditions that impair the body, to predispose it to the ill effects of COVID, particularly respiratory dysfunction, comorbid conditions such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, kidney disease, and metabolic risk, as shown here. And this is why we have seen, in particular, patients who suffer from obesity who get COVID have a much worse outcome. In fact, here's some recent data from Louisiana itself that shows that the individuals with obesity and diabetes have the highest mortality rate from COVID. So this underscores the importance of obesity as not just a disease, but as a killer disease that really requires an extreme amount of attention. Now, what am I going to do? Well, I hope to help join this great team at Pennington and help add to the already well-established reputation of Pennington being a top research center with the focus of obesity and diabetes. What we also hope to add is actually treatment to the portfolio of Pennington. And we believe that this relationship between research and development will allow the transformation of that new knowledge directly into patients. And this will be a winning combination going forward. Now, it helps to have great partners, and Our Lady of the Lake, as mentioned before, is, again, one of the top hospitals in the region, and we think this relationship will produce many dividends over the years in terms of future collaboration between the science guard at Pennington and the healthcare delivery administered at Our Lady of the Lake. So let me introduce you to our program. We're calling this the Bariatric and Metabolic Institute, or BMI for short. I'm sure many of you know what BMI means. It's also a way to measure body weight. It actually stands for body mass index. And we know that we need to have a healthy BMI, generally 25 or less. So we're using BMI as sort of a play on words to identify our center. And our center is going to be a comprehensive center that treats patients with obesity and diabetes and includes all modalities of treatment. It will be multidisciplinary and include expertise on the surgical side, which is the role that I play, but also medical, psychologic, nutrition, and other. And we're going to be addressing obesity at all phases and long term. We know that this is a chronic illness, so it's usually not just one treatment and it's cured. It's going to be a continuum of care over the lifetime of the patient. And we expect that we're going to make this Bariatric and Metabolic Institute a global destination hub for patients from out of state, out of the United States, and even international patients will come here to get very specialized treatment. This pyramid gives you an idea of the different types of treatment that will be offered. It's a pyramid shape because most patients will achieve and will be offered lifestyle modification, that is diet, physical therapy type of intervention. And then those that don't respond as well may be offered medications. And it's those patients who perhaps are the most difficult, the patients who are the heaviest, who are often 100 pounds or more over their ideal body weight, that will benefit from surgical intervention. Now, our goal is to provide an integrative approach, and we think this will be among the first in the nation, such that all of this expertise will be under one roof here on the Pennington campus. And the healthcare deliverers will be able to interface directly with the scientists here at Pennington to develop additional, more effective therapies over time. And let me just share with you an example of what we're talking about, that is combining all of this expertise: obesity medicine, surgeons, psychologists, nutritionists, administrative support, and advanced practice nurses, all working together in the same unit for the benefit of the patient. And I want to show you some of the faces of our team. These are the clinical providers, and these are my new partners who are surgeons at the Our Lady of the Lake, Dr. Brent Allah, Mark Hausman, Kenny Kleinpeter, Carl LeBlanc. And then our medical team includes Raul Manilak and Laura Boyer. And then our nutrition staff right now is Sheila Alford. And we intend to expand significantly. This is our initial core team, and we intend to expand this team significantly in the very near future. Many of you have seen the Pennington campus. It is truly a beautiful campus that's designed so well for research. Well, in the very near future, probably 9 to 12 months from now, the building on the far left here is going to be converted to a patient care facility. And this is where our new Bariatric and Metabolic Institute will be housed. And we're going to be developing this center totally from scratch with the needs of patients with severe obesity and diabetes in mind. And the goal will be to have one-stop shopping for all of their needs, their lab work, their x-rays, medical treatments. And of course, surgery will be done across the street over at Our Lady of the Lake Hospital. But the core will be right here on the Pennington campus. And this, we think, will facilitate and enhance the participation in research studies, as well as transferring knowledge learned at Pennington directly to the patient. So we're open for business. Actually, on May 27 is when we opened our new clinic at the Bariatric and Metabolic Institute. And you can see me there wearing my obligatory mask. I can tell you it's been a bit of a challenge developing and opening a new center in the midst of COVID, but we're not going to let COVID impair us from treating these devastating diseases. So we're open for business now, and I've actually had my first patient who I've performed surgery. I want to introduce you to Lois. This is a photograph of Lois and me just about 10 days ago. Here I am just walking with her in the hospital, actually the day after her surgery. Lois came all the way from Kentucky. She had some special issues from her prior surgery that we had to correct. And she came here for the special expertise of our center. And then this is Lois in our new outpatient clinic about a week after her surgery, just before she is ready to go back to her home in Kentucky, and she's surrounded by, as you can see, this very enthusiastic staff at the Bariatric and Metabolic Institute. So let me just say a little bit more about surgery. After all, I am a surgeon, and this has been the focus of my career. And over the years, several operations have been developed that can be extremely effective at treating obesity and diabetes. And from left to right, you see this procedure called the sleeve gastrectomy. This is a diagram of the esophagus and stomach and the intestines. And this procedure involves basically reducing the stomach size, reducing the stomach from about the size of an NFL football to the size of a banana. And you can see the curved shape of that small stomach. The next procedure is the gastric bypass. Here, the stomach is made even smaller. You can see we staple across the upper stomach, and we're making a stomach pouch about the size of an egg. And then we are dividing the bowel and essentially bypassing the remainder of the stomach and a small portion of the upper intestines. This next procedure, which has fallen out of favor over the last 5 to 10 years, is the gastric band. And this is a procedure that involves placing a band around the upper stomach. And this band can be tightened over time. And the tighter the band is, the more full a patient feels. Unfortunately, this operation has become less popular because the long-term results have not been so good over time. And then finally, this procedure called duodenal switch is a less commonly performed procedure, and it's mostly utilized for patients who are very large, perhaps over 400 or 500 pounds. And this operation does involve reducing the stomach size, but also involves bypassing a large portion of the intestines, which allows for a reduction in absorption of calories into the body. So these are the 4 operations we have today, all of which are quite effective and can be performed with very small incisions. We call this laparoscopic surgery, which allows us surgeons to get our patients out of the hospital quite quickly. Patients tend to stay perhaps 1 or 2 days in the hospital, and they're generally back to work around 2 weeks after surgery. This slide is the only graph I'm going to show you. This is a study that I participated in Cleveland called the Stampede trial. And this is a study where we randomized patients to have either medical treatment, gastric bypass, or sleeve gastrectomy. And all these patients had type 2 diabetes. And we measured the change in hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker of their blood sugar control. And you can see that there was a significant reduction, which is a good thing, with the surgical procedures, the gastric bypass and the sleeve gastrectomy. With medical therapy, there was an improvement, but it was much less, and it was not as sustained as surgery. So this is one study that has clearly shown surgery is superior to medical management in many ways for treating type 2 diabetes. So the Stampede trial, which was just published a few years ago, was one of the first to show the superiority of surgery over medical treatment for diabetes, not only with blood sugar, but also actually being able to put some patients in a true remission. That means that their diabetes has essentially gone. It also results in significant weight loss, reduction in cardiovascular risk, and also reducing dependency on medications, and also improving the quality of life of patients. So metabolic surgery also opens up an opportunity for research, and I'm very anxious to work with my scientific colleagues here at Pennington on addressing some of these areas where surgery can be used as a model to understand better what causes diabetes and what types of treatments that we can employ, whether they're surgical or medical or a combination. And with this new initiative, we will be able to conduct more clinical trials here at Pennington related to surgery to improve overall care of patients suffering from diabetes and obesity. Two questions we hope to answer, and we think that Pennington is the ideal place for such a clinical trial. One question is, does metabolic surgery reduce cardiovascular morbidity and mortality associated with diabetes? And the second question is, does weight loss of any kind reduce cardiovascular morbidity and mortality? And it's interesting that these two questions really have not been answered yet. So we propose here at Pennington to get funding for this very important national trial, which I consider to be my dream trial. And the name of this trial, in fact, is Diabetes Reduces Effectively After Metabolic Surgery, the DREAMS trial. And we hope that this will be conducted here. Now, as I begin to close my presentation, I share with you a lot of our ideas and how we can incorporate research to actually help improve patient care. But I think one of the most profound ways to show that is to actually share with you real patients who have benefited from metabolic surgery. I want to share with you my patient, Lisa, and this is Lisa in 2009. She struggled with obesity and type 2 diabetes, and she was on more than 8 medications and still had trouble getting her blood sugar down. And then here she is 10 years later after metabolic surgery, and her diabetes is gone. Isn't that amazing, right? To see this in a real patient. And let me just share with you what I call the LSU scorecard for this patient, Lisa. And I can tell you that all of her opponents, obesity, diabetes, blood pressure, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, depression, the medications that she's required to take, poor quality of life, she's been able to defeat all of her opponents. And she now has a long-lasting cure of obesity and diabetes after 10 years. So I consider Lisa an undefeated national champion, just like our LSU football team. But let me share with you a few other patients. This is Judge Parker. Prior to surgery, 306 pounds, struggled with his weight and lots of medical problems. Here he is, 10 years later. He looks younger, doesn't he? In this photograph, more than 100 pounds lighter, 10 years later. This is Debbie Pyle. You can see her with her daughter, 230 pounds. Here she is running a 10K 5 years later, now down to a good, healthy weight and a body mass index of 25. Here's another patient. This is actually a doctor, Dr. Fred Ma. He's a neurosurgeon in Cleveland. When you first look at him, it doesn't look that heavy, does he? But people of Asian origin, people from China, from the Far East, tend to suffer diabetes at a lower body weight. So he struggled for many years with medications, but couldn't get his diabetes into control. And here he is about 5 years after metabolic surgery, and he's on a much lower amount of medications, and his diabetes is in much better control. And you can see he looks a lot healthier. And then finally, this is one of one patient I love to brag about. This gentleman, Mr. Rossborough, is 83 years old. and he had a heart transplant at the Cleveland Clinic. But after he had the heart transplant, he gained a bunch of weight on the medications and was really struggling with his health. So at the age of 83, he had a bariatric procedure and was able to drop his weight quite a bit, as you can see here, and looks much healthier. You can hardly recognize him, right, in this photograph, and he's much healthier. So even older folks who have major medical problems can undergo these operations. So finally, as I close, I want to share with you what our goal is, and I think you folks as business people would appreciate this, that we're going to be creating a destination bariatric and metabolic institute that's going to bring in patients as well as new recruits of scientists and doctors to help us expand our science and our care. And we hope to be an important participant and team member for the new Baton Rouge healthcare district, with Pennington playing an important role, not just as a research center, but also as a healthcare deliverer, along with its partner, Our Lady of the Lake Hospital. So finally, my ultimate goal is 10 years from now that we're going to make this Bariatric and Metabolic Institute a national champion in terms of obesity and research treatment, just like our football team. So again, thank you very much for your attention. Our website is shown right here, pbrcbmi.org. And if you have any questions, perhaps we have a little bit of time, also feel free to email me. I would be happy to respond to any questions or comments that you have. Thank you again very much for your attention, and please stay safe. And I certainly hope that this COVID is gone soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. This first question we have is from Barbara Auten. Can you speak to the relationship of diabetes to Alzheimer's?
Yes, there has emerged a whole body of evidence that does link diabetes to Alzheimer's. You know, in fact, very unfortunate, my mother-in-law, who'd been suffering from diabetes for many years, developed Alzheimer's and just passed away in January. So that's an issue that's very near and dear to my heart as well. But there does seem to be a very close link to diabetes and Alzheimer's. There's several theories, one of which is that diabetes causes vascular disease. It causes the blood vessels in the brain to be blocked, cutting off some of the blood supply to the brain, which can affect cognition. So that's why it's so important to have the diabetes under good control, and that's what we aim to do here at our new center.
Okay, Lou Hudson asked, what is the timeline for the treatment availability?
Right. Well, as I mentioned, our center is currently up, and running. It's open right now. We're up for business. Now, depending upon patients' needs, medical treatment can be started right away. Medical and, counseling regarding nutrition and exercise, which Pennington has been foremost leaders, that can start right away. For surgical treatment, there's usually a period of several weeks, in fact, sometimes several months, for patients to be evaluated and be prepared for surgery.
Okay, Paul Moran asked, Dr. Schauer, could you please discuss the changes in nutrient absorption and metabolic processing of nutrients with the various metabolic surgery procedures?
That's a really good question. And it is true that with all these surgical procedures, patients do need to take supplemental vitamins for a variety of reasons. Either they're not getting enough in their diet, perhaps because of their small stomach, or perhaps because they're not absorbing as they did before the surgery. So these can generally be managed fairly well with some simple multivitamins that includes iron and B12, and often we will provide calcium and vitamin D. But some of the procedures that involve bypassing part of the intestines tend to have a greater effect on the absorption of certain vitamins and nutrients. In fact, the procedure that I mentioned last, the duodenal switch, that operation bypasses a majority of the intestines, and it's extremely effective at weight loss, but it also does lead to some malabsorption of nutrients. So those folks need to have more special attention on their vitamin intake and closer follow-up so they don't have nutritional problems. But frankly, it's fairly rare that individuals who have these procedures get into significant nutritional problems.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Zimmerman asks, what would you say is the correlation of diabetes with, quote, good gut bacteria or the lack thereof, unquote?
Right. So that's a great question. We're learning that these operations have effects beyond weight loss. And we do know that, and it does sort of make sense, that if you reroute the intestines, it's going to affect the bacteria in your intestines. And so we're learning more and more about the role of bacteria in the colon and the small intestines. And these bacteria secrete all types of metabolites that can affect disease. So this is a fairly early, investigational theory. And there are folks here at Pennington that have lots of expertise in what's called the microbiome. And we intend to investigate more about how surgery can affect the gut bacteria and produce, improvement in health.
Okay, and one more question from Nancy Stitch would like to know, what is your single best advice for all of us who are working to maintain or lose weight?
Right. Well, the goal should be to, try to get to a good, healthy weight, generally a body mass index of 25 or certainly 25 to 30. And first starting with good, healthy eating and exercise, so-called lifestyle type of intervention. And then progressing or escalating to medications in some cases. And there are now 4 or 5 FDA approved drugs. Some are more effective than others, and they're available here at Pennington. And then for some folks who have more weight to lose, for folks that need to lose 50, 60, 75 pounds or more, you might think about surgery because losing weight's very difficult for lots of interesting reasons that we're trying to discover here at Pennington, but keeping it off is even more difficult. And the most effective therapy today in terms of reducing weight and keeping it off long term is surgery. And fortunately, with surgery, it's become much safer over the last 10 years. Bariatric or metabolic surgery is about as safe as having your gallbladder out or having your appendix removed. So it's become quite safe.
Dr. Schauer, thank you so much. We really appreciate you spending time with us and sharing the exciting news about what's going on up at Pennington Biomedical.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, again, next week, next Wednesday, June 24th, our speaker will be G. Park, speaking about the Innocence Project. Look forward to speaking with you all then. In between now and then, have a great week. Be careful. Make sure you take care of yourself.